Welcome back, everyone, to the Sex, Drugs, and Jesus podcast. I'm your host, Devan and Hubert, and today I have a very special guest for a very special episode. Her name is Elaine Perl, and you have heard me talk about hypnosis, hypnotherapy. I have preached it from the rooftop, the mountaintop, from the bottom of the valley, y'all. And now I'm revealing to the world a person who is my personal hypnotherapist. Her name is Elaine. I've had on the show previously my personal physician assistant, so I love dissecting every aspect of my life for y'all to see. You know what? People are going to talk about me anyway, so I'm giving you bitches something to talk about. Elaine, how are you?
Well, thank you so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate that. I'm honored to be working together with you.
Absolutely. Now, y'all, when I was a student at the Hypnosis Motivation Institute, Elaine was one of my professors, and that's how I met her. She has her own private practice and everything like that. And that website is elaineperlis.com. That's ELAINEPERLISS.com. All this information will go in the showy notes, as it always does, along with any of her social media and stuff like that. She has a fascinating FAQ page on her website, too. And which will answer a lot of your questions about hypnotherapy and hypnosis. So then let's dive right into it. Tell us about the history of hypnotherapy.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you so much. You know, a lot of people think that it's only been around for a little while, but it's surprising that it's been around for over 5,000 years. In fact, the first evidence of its use was back in Egypt over 5,000 years ago. And back then they called them sleep temples. And these sleep temples are where they went and they utilized an expectation and an overload and a lot of the same tools that we use today. Interesting. Anyways, it continued to evolve, it continued to grow in different cultures, and it spread throughout the entire world. And fast forward a few thousand years to the 1700s, this gentleman, his Dr. Antoine Mesmer came along, and he was so excited about it and its medicinal opportunities and possibilities, he actually named it mesmerism. And that's where if you think of the word I'm mesmerized, that's where it came from. Anyways, fast forward, his followers, they continued to make progress and it continued to grow and evolve. At this point, it was mostly in the European countries, France, Germany, et cetera. Then in the early 1800s, it really expanded as more and more medical applications were discovered. For example, anesthesia, sciatica, lots and lots of really surprising results, which made them even more excited about this seemingly new technology, but it is literally a new application and more uses for it. So then they called it lucid sleep. But in the mid 1800s, there was this gentleman, Dr. James Braid. He said, wow, wait a second. I can use this for emotional connections to physical illness. And I think this is more like hypnosis. So I'm going to call it hypnotism. And basically, that's a Greek word for sleep. It was sort of a light state of trance. So, anyways, more and more evolution, more studies, more scientific. The scientific community really got on board at this point, and there were a lot of medical applications in the 1800s. And then by the late 1800s, it was actually being taught in universities, medical universities, as part of their actual training. In the 1900s, it really started to expand. Many of you have heard Dr. Sigmund Freud. He's the founder of psychoanalysis. He started dabbling in hypnosis for the purpose of mental health issues. And he was an early pioneer area. Now, he also had a number of followers, and they all started to expand it and grow it in the mental health field. In fact, it would come to be called conscious autosuggestion. It had a lot of names over the years. Anyways, it was used widely in World War I and World War II for trauma, anxiety, post-traumatic stress, and other war-related emotional and mental illnesses. Now, in the 1920s, you might remember that was the beginning of, vaudeville and things like that. Well, stage hypnosis really took the stage at that point, and that exploded the awareness of hypnosis. And one of the people who went to one of those events, one of those shows. His name was Dr. Milton Erickson. Dr. Milton Erickson, he suffered from polio. And so he decided to use some of these techniques for his own physical and emotional ailments that he had. And so he went on to become probably one of the foremost doctors of hypnotherapy in the 20th century or in the 1800s. He called it behavioral modification. And he, again, moved on to greatness. Now, in the 20th century, the later 20th century, hypnotherapy, uh, Hypnosis Motivation Institute came along 1968, and it's been going alive and well now for well over 50 years. And it is now called hypnotherapy. And its awareness, its acceptance, its therapeutic and scientific value continue to grow exponentially. And as applications are continuing to be discovered, more and more its use, its acceptance, and its validity and its effectiveness grow and grow and grow. And that brings you to today. And who knows where it's going from here.
Right, and then you mentioned the Hypnosis Motivation Institute. I just wanna let everybody know that, our school was the first accredited school in the country for hypnotherapy. You got some good ones out there, you got some bad ones out there, you really, really do, but this one was the first.
Yes. Can I add a little bit to that?
By all means.
Oh, good. One of the things, I mean, I've been affiliated with the school for over 20 years since the turn of the century. Anyways, I've been affiliated with the school for a long time. And not too long ago, they came up with a degree program, and it's in mind body psychology. And so now, not only was it the first and only nationally accredited college for hypnotherapy, then it became, when other schools started, jumping onto the bandwagon. Well, we're now the first degree oriented. And so it has jumped into the realm of mind body psychology. It is taken it exponentially. So,
Hmm, how
yeah,
about that? I might have to go back to school, y'all.
I know. I just graduated. I now have my degree, and I am very, very happy.
Congratulations, girl.
Clinical hypnotherapist. Anyway, so that's
So
that.
so there's modalities of within hypnotherapy. So I want people to know that it's not just hypnotherapy solid. Like, so say for instance, neuro linguistic programming, NLP is like super popular. I know people who have like just NLP licenses, but I learned how to do this when I was in school for hypnotherapy. So can you mention some of the other modalities?
Sure. Well, let me talk about NLP or neuro linguistic programming. Dr. Milton Erickson was one of the guy who was the doctor that was really prominent in hypnosis. He was one of the very earliest proponents and subjects that people who developed NLP used as a subject. So he's been involved with NLP since, well, he was involved with NLP since its beginning. And it's an incredible method, how you do what you do and mixed together with the behavioral modification aspects of hypnosis. It's sort of like a hand in a glove. But there are many other techniques that are used. For example, therapeutic imagery. A lot of people are familiar with that. And it's basically talking to the subconscious and finding out what the subconscious needs, because all behavior comes from the subconscious. There are other techniques like EMDR, EFT, and those are tapping methods that you can use. There are hundreds of different methods and modalities, and more are discovered every day. Biofeedback, inner child, and just loads and loads of them.
Okay.
Okay.
Kick
Yeah.
ass, man. So tell us about your personal history. What got you into hypnotherapy, and what are some of your personal qualifications?
Thank you. I appreciate that. I am a clinical hypnotherapist and I am a senior staff instructor over at HMI, Hypnosis Motivation Institute. And I most recently, again, I mentioned I just most recently got continuing education. So all through the years that I've been doing this again for a long time, I'm continuing to grow and learn. And so I have been in this field since you guys probably remember 9/11. It was a little bit of an emotional time, that it was a little bit of an upheaval in this country. So a lot of people were kind of at odds. Well, right before that, Just prior to that, my life, my personal life was turned upside. In the late 1990s, my husband, at that time, 20 years, he became very ill and we almost lost him. But he had a long hospitalization and happily recovered, and we're alive and kicking today, which is great. But in the year 2000, I'm so grateful. In the year 2000, that's when everything hit the my in a span of 2 months, I lost my father in May. June, I lost my sister-in-law suddenly to a heart attack. In July, I lost mother. Well, I realized then that I was a helping, caring, sharing person because I was the primary caregiver. And I realized there's more to life. So I had a bigger purpose and I knew that my marketing executive days in a highly successful but very toxic environment of the entertainment business were they're numbered. So I did my own recovery work and discovered hypnotherapy to be one of the best things since sliced bread. It literally helped to change my life. So that's and then fast forward to today, still doing it and I'm loving it every last day.
You know what? There's nothing like trauma to push us into our destiny, into our futures and everything like that. It happens that way so much.
It's so true. It's so true. We go through a really traumatic experience. Basically, what happens, people come to hypnosis and hypnotherapy when the drama, trauma, discomfort, pain, fear, whatever it is that they're in, becomes more untenable, more scary, more uncomfortable than the fear of whatever the change might be in hypnosis. And so when people are courageous enough and call a hypnotherapist and say, yikes, I need help. Can you help me to feel better? It's because they're so exhausted, feeling exhausted, you know? They're traumatized. They want to feel better. They want quality of life. I mean, it's what turns a lot of people around. I know that Joanna, you and I have been working together, and you were in a place of, you know what? I'm tired of dragging along the old stuff that I used to have. And I don't want it. It's not serving me anymore. And so hypnosis, hypnotherapy, because we're behaviorists, because we help people by accessing the power of our subconscious mind, that's what helps us to make changes so much easily, so much more effectively, because we are using not only our conscious, but our subconscious, our conscious thoughts and our subconscious motivation.
How much of our mind is subconscious versus how much of it is conscious?
It'd be a little bit surprising if you knew for your viewers and your listeners. Imagine an iceberg. When you see an iceberg and you see this pretty big iceberg, well, it's pretty big, but that's about 10 to 12% of the whole mass of the iceberg. So that would be representative of the conscious mind. All the part that's below the water, the part that you can't see, that 88 to 90%, that is our subconscious. That's our autopilot, our habits, our motivations, our behaviors, our emotions, all the stuff that we do without thinking about it. Like if I was going to throw a ball at you, you would not think about ducking or moving to the left or the right because your subconscious is there to protect you and to keep you safe and alive and well. And so once you learn something, it becomes part of your automatic behavior. But what ends up happening is we might learn something, like, for example, someone raised in a war zone. They may learn that loud noises are a thing because that means a bomb is dropping in their front yard. But after a while, the war is over. They're going along and having a nice life. And then a car backfires and they are completely, sorry for the word, triggered. They're totally activated again. And then what ends up happening is it's almost like they are that child completely. And that's a tangible example, but that's basically what happens. Maybe you learned something as a child that worked for you when you were a child when you were in a danger zone. But today, that danger does exist, but your behavior and your habit, the stuff that's that 90%, that's still alive and well in your subconscious until we go in and we replace it with something else that you for. And that's how it works.
Absolutely fantastic. So let's talk about some of the myths within the hypnosis field. Tell us what it how it can be presented falsely than what it actually is.
Absolutely. Sometimes people, I talked about a little bit about it being on the stage hypnosis, and what happened that it screamed to popularity because it was something that was fun to watch and you could really dramatize it. So people would think that you have to bark like a dog or cluck like a chicken. Or after a hypnosis session, I'd call you up and I'd say, Rosebud, and you're going out and kill somebody. Well, the fact of the matter is, hypnosis is a natural state. Everybody's in hypnosis a couple of times every single day. Like, for example, when you're driving in your car and you're just going along the road and your turn was over there, but you were focused on the road. That's a state of environmental hypnosis. It just means that you're focusing here and the things around you are starting to, melt into the background. It's a natural process. It's a relaxing process. Someone in hypnosis is never out of control. They're never made to do anything that they don't want to do or say anything you don't want they want to say. And it's been around for over 5,000 years, and they have been per, per, I don't know, say perfecting it, but they continue to improve it, found more and more effective ways to use it. And the scientific evidence behind it is compelling at this point. And so there are hundreds of different ways that people can use hypnosis. It is something that it's a behavior modification process. And everyone is hypnotizable. Now, some people will feel, everybody experiences hypnosis differently. Some people have a lot of tingling sensation. Some people feel relaxed and calm. Some people feel like they've gotten 8 hours sleep in 15 minutes, but some people don't feel any differently at all. It's all good. Everybody experiences it differently. Now, a lot of people, they don't even realize that they're hypnotized. But the hypnotherapist, the qualified hypnotherapist, can tell that you're hypnotized. They'll let you know along the way what's going on, what to expect, what not to expect. And, you are right with them. You could get up at any time, but most people don't want to because it's very, very comfortable. And it is a participatory process. And what that means is the hypnotherapist, our job is to help the client to come up with different strategies, different ways of doing things, new habits, new behaviors, different ways of thinking about it, seeing it, um, and different models, if you will, for conducting their lives. And then the hypnotherapist will help to jumpstart that process by helping them to achieve the state of hypnosis. And then once they do, then the hypnotherapist will give the client their positive suggestions. And so, like when I'm doing a hypnotherapy session, I'll keep notes of what the client says because I know what the client is the most open to the words. So I will be giving them their words. And then the client does their part in between sessions, they practice those changes. And the more they practice those changes, the more quickly change happens. And as I mentioned before, it's so effective. There's hundreds of different ways that it's used more and more each day, from things like pain management. A lot of people use this for comfort. In fact, those were a lot of the earlier applications. My areas of specialty are more on the levels of the emotional areas, for example, anxieties, fears, worry, guilt, maybe a fear of success, a fear of failure is very, very common. Having to deal with the unknown, the uncertainties. But then there's also the things that most people have heard of, like breaking bad habits, like smoking or biting your nails or things like that. But while you're breaking those bad habits, you're shifting them to ones that you would prefer to have. And so instead of saying, not biting my nails are beautiful, my nails are growing. Or instead of saying, I'm not successful in my job, I'm flourishing, creating all the goals and manifesting all the goals that I want. And so it's moving to a can do as opposed to can't. And so, and also, you mentioned this earlier, trauma, PTSD, the things that happened in our past, dysfunctional childhoods, family systems, some of the beliefs that we had, sometimes our history, maybe we were raised in our environment sometimes culturally, sometimes religiously, sometimes in, difficult situations where there were a lot of things that were present then that are not present now. And so it's a matter of replacing those old strategies for survival with ones that work. And also, and this is the part that I like the best, because people have a tendency to, with hypnosis, they build their happiness, their self esteem, their self confidence, their inner balance, their well being, kind of a state of Zen. It's just a really wonderful state of balance and comfort in your life. And that's one of the reasons why, those are some of the reasons why I love it so much.
Hell yeah. I'll take all that shit.
Okay, I'll give it up to you. I'm happy to share that with you.
And look, the world, y'all can have it too. So I want to talk about go back to that word you mentioned, overload, because then I want you to explain like the snap that you use often in
Yeah,
hypnosis. And my favorite takeaway, what I learned from when I was in school, the way they explained it to me, and the reason why, like you say, everybody is hypnotizable. They were explaining like, so when we go to the movies,
mhm,
like if I turn this television on behind me and it's Halloween almost, and I put on a horror movie and the big titty girl's about to run, she's running through the woods. And of course, I know she's going to fall and she's going to get slaughtered by the boogeyman. It happens every time, every Halloween. But my pulse is, that's not going to stop. That's because I know that, and because I know it's fake. It's not going to stop my pulse from racing. My heart is going to accelerate. I'm going to feel fear for this dumbass bitch because and I know she's going to die every Halloween, but I'm still going to like feel that way anyway because my mind is in a state of overload and my consciousness cannot discern, reality from fakeness. And that's kind of, how what's going on here. So explain to us how overload is and what that has to do with how you gain access to the subconscious.
I love that. That was a great explanation because you were talking about all of the elements all rolled into one. I had this overload, I had this expectation, I had this anxiety, I had this heightened awareness. I'm hyper suggestible. That's what we call it in hypnosis. And what happens is we get all these messages, all these messages, all these messages. And it's like Chinese water torture or something like that. It just goes over and over. And then eventually what happens is we get this overloaded message units and we're filled up to the top. And eventually what we do is we escape into hypnosis. In other words, we need to get out of that overload place. And so what we do is we call it escaping into the state of hypnosis. And then when someone, it's called the peak of your suggestibility. So you're going up, 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 you're getting more and more and more overloaded and more message units, more information, more whatever's coming. And then when I my fingers and say deep sleep, I'll say deep. And then all of a sudden, that's if you weren't over the edge yet, you're over it now. And then once you go over that, escape it bliss. It's like you're going into this amazing warm or this, wonderful blanket or whatever it is. You just go into this amazing state of relaxation. And at that point, the hypnotherapist is, you are open to the suggestions. That has opened your subconscious to receive the suggestions. The barriers that were trying to keep you from going into that state of hypnosis, those barriers have they've been pulled aside. And your subconscious is open. It's not unlike, and it's a really kind of an interesting parallel. Now, in the state of sleep, when you're actually physically asleep at night, the same process is happening, but you're in an unconscious state. Your subconscious is open. All the information that you get during the day that you've been keeping on hold in a holding pattern, it's all getting mixed together with what you know. And in the natural process, your subconscious is pulling it together and mixing it all together and creating new behaviors and new habits. So the process of hypnosis, and we call it hypnosis, which means sleep, you're not really asleep, as I mentioned, more aware. It's in a state of subconscious. So it's between the conscious state and the unconscious state. It's this place called subconscious. And that's where your subconscious is open to these suggestions, just like when you are in a sleep state. only you hear everything that's said, and your subconscious is actually mixing all the new information that comes in and mixing it together with what you already know. And in the state of hypnosis, we give your subconscious permission to let go of those old behaviors and habits while we give you the suggestions, new ideas, the ones that have been stuck up here in the holding pattern where the conscious mind is. And that's how we create that synchronicity. Okay.
Mm,
That help?
that's one of my yes, it did. Thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
offering that. Synchronicity, syncrosity, all of those sort of words, I just love them. I think they're so intense and so beautiful. It's beautiful in the most intense way. So yes, I've been, seeing you for I don't even know how long, because time goes by so fast. But my favorite, and I came to you, because I during the course of my training for hypnotherapy, I realized that the voices in my head that had been guiding my life really were not my own. I still had the voice of the church in my head, I had the voice of the military in my head, and the critical voice for my abusive dad, in my head and everything like that. And like in my relationship with my boyfriend, I'm hearing myself speak the same critical negativity that those three entities spoke to me. And I'm going, wait a minute, I know better than to say that and to do that. Why am I acting this way? And why do I feel these insecure feelings and things like that? And so I realized that even though I'm almost 40 years old, I was still under the influence of things from when I was younger. And so now people will always hear me say it's important for you to know why you think what you think. It's important for you to know why you feel what you feel, why you believe what you believe, and not to accept every thought and emotion that comes to you, no matter how intensely it presents itself, without registering that it's actually authentically yours.
Mhm.
And and there are people who I pose a question to, they have a very strong belief on something. I go, well, why do you believe that? Or why do you think that? And they can't render a reason, and I don't want to let myself be that way. The most beautiful experience that I've had since, starting the hypnotherapy with you is I had a dream. And in this field of healing, the early morning dreams are a very important way that the subconscious will vent messages and healing and things like that. Those early morning dreams is something you'll hear every qualified hypnotherapist talk about. And so I had a dream of myself as like it was like my adult self, and I went into like this burning house, like this burning house that was like on fire, and I found like my 5 to 7 year old self in there. And it's like I was trying to get him to get out of this house, and I couldn't get him out of the house, but I kept trying to reassure him, and I kept telling him, "It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault." I kept telling him, "It's not your fault." Try to get him out of this goddamn house, and I couldn't get him out of the house in that dream. But just the fact that I went on this search to find myself and to give myself reassuring words, is a good indication that I'm headed in the right direction. And so for
Okay.
me, that was the most beautiful manifestation of the benefits of hypnotherapy so far.
Oh my gosh, I remember that. It's interesting when you were talking about that. You discovered that you had new tools that, if you don't mind, I'm just going to give you a little feedback on. You discovered that that little boy that was you, the 5 to 7 year old, that was when a lot of the trauma was going on in your past. It just happened to be a pivotal time when you probably felt the most helpless. And so what it was the adult you going back and trying to rescue that child and get him out of that. Now that you couldn't bring him out, to me was you were letting go of the notion he was trapped because it was a venting dream. Venting dream means that you're letting go of old behaviors and habits. He's not trapped anymore. I've got this. Does that does that make sense?
It does. I did feel a strong sense of like I may have cried in this dream or something like that, but it did feel very cathartic.
Yes.
When I woke up, it stuck with me for quite a while, and I did feel a strong sense of release.
Yes. Yes. It makes sense. I know that that was when we were turning some corners. It's so interesting because the subconscious, speaking of that, The subconscious communicates in symbols and images. And contrary to popular belief, because you were talking about the critical voice that we think comes out of the subconscious's number one goal is to keep us alive and healthy. Every single thing that it learns and does is with whenever it learned it, it knew that it was good for you or anybody else. And so it will always bring up stuff that you might have a learning or an insight or in its, 5-year-old mind thinks it's good for you. Like, for example, you grew up in a critical house. And so drinking the Kool-Aid for lack of a better word, but buying the symptoms of what was going on actually did help you to survive. Whether it was the church, whether it was the military, whether it was your parents, whether it was any number of situations and scenarios, you actually survived your childhood because you developed those coping mechanisms. But then you said, why am I still doing this? Why am I still with the critical voices? Well, what ends up happening is that those critical voices, by the way, this is a fun fact. Any of that negative self talk, absolutely zero of it. None of it, not one word originated from you. None of it. And that's an astounding fact. Because what happens is we're born thinking we're all that. We're like the king of the hill. We're like all of that. And that's part of our survival mechanism. We only learn those negative words because someone has given them to us. And we buy that because we believe at 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, that that's what's going to help us survive. And so, I fondly call it self-flogging. So I beat myself up and as an adult because I remember that when I would be beaten up negatively, with negative words as a child, it was the motivator. It was the stick that got me going. But what ends up happening is it becomes counterproductive. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Ain't no
So,
ain't no good shit gonna come out of negative self-talk, you know, it
right,
takes us so long to realize that it's not us, and we hold on to the negative sometimes more than we do the positive. We
yes,
repeat the insults rather than the
right,
compliments and stuff like that.
right,
But that
right.
because it was that way doesn't mean it has to always be that way.
Exactly. Well, the thing is, and a lot of people, why am I still doing this? And I beat myself because I'm beating myself up. But if we remember that that was something that we learned to help us, then we can practice some acceptance, the word that you were looking at, like the one that you were talking about, acceptance of my thoughts and my emotions, because it's trying to help. So if your clients, and I know that you also practice hypnotherapy, your clients, if they are understanding that that scary thought or whatever, if they realize that it's something to help them and they accept it, that it is there to help them, all of a sudden you're looking at it instead of as a bad child, a scared child, for example,
Mm.
if it makes sense. And so when we start looking at it differently, we start having compassion for ourselves. It's one of the most amazing shifts. And I know that you have had this shift, and that is instead of motivating myself with the stick, I'm using compassion, I'm using acceptance, I'm using kindness, I'm using love, reinforcement, support, all of the words that you have evolved and developed to say, you know what, you got this. And what different motivation, right? It's so awesome. I need to say congratulations to you. You've done some major work there.
Well, thank you, and, we got plenty more to do, and so let's talk about what we're gonna work on today. So, yes, y'all, you're gonna get to see Elaine do a little pre-talk, and we're gonna do, like, kinda like a progressive relaxation sort of hypnotherapy session so you can get, like, a taste of what it's like. This isn't gonna be anything too extreme, in a larger environment, we would talk, I would go lay in this super comfortable chair. There could be use of different sound devices, be it the beautiful wind chimes behind her, pendulums, and all kinds of things that help to get the mind into hypnosis. There's all kinds of tricks the hypnotherapist has in their bag, and they are quite colorful, but they're all to help you. And so today I would just like to keep working on, this child and everything, just speaking against those negative voices, fear, trepidation, feeling overwhelmed, in my businesses, and things like that. Lately, I've been feeling like I don't, I'm not qualified to do all the things that I'm doing, or that I don't have enough knowledge or wisdom or know how to take, this podcast to the next level, or to really market my book, or to do those things. Because as I'm trying to go forward in these industries, I'm trying to open doors in industries I've never been in before. And I'm starting to get the, you know, you know, it seems these industries seem to help those who are already there more so than those who are trying to get into them. And so,
And it's the catch-22. You gotta have it to get it, and you gotta get it to have it. Yeah.
right. And so lately I feel like I'm just knocking against, like, a new ceiling that I've never tried to knock against before. I'm trying to push this thing open, and it's just not happening. And I'm trying to remind myself, I'm not really in control of the timing. It's going to happen when God wants it to happen. I've done quite a lot. I don't think I'm really giving myself enough credit for the amount of work it took to get this podcast where it is, this book behind me on this show. And sometimes I can fall into this trap of focusing on what isn't versus rejoicing over everything that has happened that led up to this point.
Right.
And I've been like that a lot, and it's been very discouraging. And I've been wondering how I'm going to move forward. So I could use a little encouragement on today.
Okay. That's wow. Okay. Now, some of this is probably gonna be a little bit of a repeat because I know that we've done some work together. And I'm so glad that, see, you noticed I'm focusing on what isn't instead of is. But it flies in the face of my early childhood training that I have to focus on what isn't because I have to figure out how to make it right, whatever it is. And it's usually pretty vague what I have to do. And oh, by the way, if you don't, if you're not doing it right, you're going to get a whooping or, you're going to get a whatever it is. And so it's easy to go back to that old thought that if I focus on what it isn't, it will somehow or another propel me to make it is, right? And you obviously done so much work on this. You know that to focus on I always call it is the glass half empty or half full. It's either one or both, right? If it's half empty, that means you're focusing on the part that isn't. If it's half full, you're focusing on the part that is. And, you've heard the comment, you're 100% successful in what you focus on. I mean, that's the little engine that could, it's the good wolf and the bad wolf, it's all those different stories. And so what we do is we start shifting our consciousness toward what we want. And so I heard some words and I'm going to repeat them back to you. Okay. So I want to, I want to talk to that child and speak to the part, and you said against, but we'll talk to the part still afraid. And it's part of that, we call it the inner child, but that's that part. I'm afraid. That trepidation, I'm afraid. Do I have a parachute? Am I going to jump off this cliff and am I going to, crash on the rocks or am I going to soar? The overwhelmingness because there's a lot of unknowns. Am I qualified? It's just all new to me. How in the world do I know I'm qualified? You know? So I'm looking at what I'm not. Well, but I'm opening doors, but then I know this is, sometimes I call them the yeah buts. I'm opening these doors, yeah, but. And we do that. We all do that. I call them little rabbits. They're yeah buts. They were so what happens is we're focusing on, we say, yeah, logically in my mind, I know I'm opening new doors. Yeah, but it's new. Yeah, but I don't know which way to go. Yeah, but I have the ceiling. Yeah, but there's a brick wall, right? So let me shift that a little bit. Yes, I see the ceiling. I see it. I now recognize that ceiling, in fact, you can see the watermarks on the wall where the ceiling used to be a lot lower, right? But I see the ceiling, it's gotten higher. It's gotten higher and it's gotten higher. But there's still a ceiling there and I recognize it and that's okay. Because I that is a metaphor for there's still stuff that's unknown. What's on the other side of the ceiling? What's on the other side of the door? I don't know. So, and I'm not in control of the timing. I want to be in control of the timing. I want it to happen when I want it to happen so that I don't have to worry about
Yeah.
it. Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And if you find that, I want that magic pill, please. But I'm here to tell you that hypnotherapy helps us to shift our thoughts away from those old thoughts that they happen automatically. Remember when we were talking about the subconscious, that's where our habits are and our behaviors are? Well, that part is the vast majority of our conscious thinking. And so what we need to do is we need to get those conscious thoughts. Like, for example, you know that thinking positively, you know that succeeding is good for your survival, right? But yet you've got those yeah buts underneath. So now what we want to do is we want to identify for a moment what is I do want. Okay. Not what I already see. I see the fear, the trepidation. Well, what is it that I do want? We want to identify what does that look like?
I want to be accepted in these new arenas I'm trying to get into. So I want to be, I want greater acceptance in the author world, as I, try to deal with different marketing companies or different publishing houses or different review agencies or different things like that, I want to find that tribe where alternative podcasts like mine that are they're explicit, and things like that are accepted because a lot of popular, podcasts and a lot of popular podcast circles are very conservative or business oriented. But this is very, culture, very edgy, very, very fucking real. But very fucking real isn't always accepted in a lot of popular places. So I want to find a place to
See?
work. Yeah.
Excuse me, time out.
Yeah.
Okay. Because we started to go back into the negative. And I'm saying that just because it's our natural process. Okay. It isn't accepted in a lot of places, right?
Right.
Pretty much that's like a no-brainer. Would you want to be in those places?
No, I don't.
I did think
What do
so.
you
Those places are not you. Those- That's like going, like if you wear really expensive clothes and you go to a salon, you don't fit, right? I mean, or vice versa. So I want and this is something that's really important for everybody. I want my pack. I want my community. I want my comrades. I want my tribe. I want to attract and be attracted to those people with whom I have a common interest. Is that
Yeah.
I know that I took a word
That's
on
what I meant to say. That's exactly what I meant to say.
I've had a feeling so. And I okay, just kind of a little bit of a sidebar. I knew that that's where you had because we've had a lot of history together. So I took a little shortcut there, but yes, that's exactly right. And so that's a really good thing. And we also used it as an example. So I'm hearing that you want acceptance in new arenas. For example, as an author, as a marketing person in the publishing companies, in the agencies. These are new places that you are breaking into. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. But in addition to that, I want my tribe. I want to feel that I'm part of a community that is there to help. I mean, there to, you guys have common interests. It's a new culture that you want to be in,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Okay. All right. So is there anything else that is part of what your inner child needs to hear?
No, he just
Okay.
He just
These are
needs
great.
to hear he just needs to know he's good enough and to be patient. He needs to understand that patience is a good thing. So, that's good.
Okay. You know, if we have this presupposition that our subconscious is constantly working for our benefit, yes? Now, here's the cool part about it. My conscious mind can go do the research and it can do all of the different things and it can knock on doors, it can do all of that stuff. But it's only about 10 to 12%, right? So, what would happen if we got our subconscious on board to help? That'd be a good thing.
Yes, it would.
Because it really basically what you're doing is you're supercharging. If we know, and it's an absolute non-negotiable fact that our subconscious 100% of the time is here trying to protect us and keep us alive and well and working toward our goals. There is absolutely no other option. All right. It just is. Because otherwise we would not exist as a species. I mean, literally, it comes right down to that. Okay. All right. So I know that I learned some things that were other people's beliefs. I learned that those things were good for me when I was 5 to 7 years old, and they were great for that. But now I'm trying to unlearn those, and I'm knowing that I have really reached a lot of goals. I've really accomplished a lot of goals. We could go on for days with that because, I know that you know a lot of the goals that you've reached. And so now I'm seeing the steps is moving toward acceptance in the new areas that I'm researching and attracting a greater community of like-minded people. Is that fair? Okay. Now, how do you know that you're good enough? What lets you know that you're
I I would say a feeling my first thought was once the objective has been accomplished, but I feel like that's probably I don't know if that's like the strongest thing.
well, that's the cart before the horse.
Right.
When you're facing the unknown, fear is an absolutely natural consequence of facing the unknown because it is the unknown and your fear is trying to protect you. So, in your life, can you think of a time that you faced something that was new that you didn't know and you did it?
I mean, yeah, probably, but thinking back on it now, sometimes it's in that moment, I just feel like I can,
Okay.
or maybe whatever it is that was presented to me, I rationalize, okay, I can probably do this.
Okay.
Now, why? I don't know.
Okay. Okay. When you were going after that, whatever it was, why? What were you thinking? You knew it was new. Why'd you decide to do it, whatever it was?
It just felt right. It felt good. Maybe I felt calm. I felt capable. Inexplicably, I don't know why. You know,
Okay. Is it possible that you were focusing on the goal? You were focusing on the reason why you wanted this goal, whatever it was?
yeah. I mean, sure, yeah.
So if I'm 100% successful at what I focus on, if my goal is to have acceptance, I'm going to manifest acceptance by being acceptance. Does that make sense?
And
What is it like when I'm accepted? Oh, by the way, I have had a lot of new, this is you. I've had a lot of new situations where I came in and I wasn't accepted at that moment because they didn't know me. But once they got to know me, once I was able to share my enthusiasm out of it, my energy, my insight, my knowledge, my motivation, my inspiration, then all of a sudden I found commonalities, right? But I came in to it. I mean, there's 100 different examples that I can think of just in my knowing history that you have faced. I mean, we could go all the way back to learning to walk. I mean, I want to go as fast as my mom. I want to catch up to my dad. You know, that's, I'm thinking about walking. I'm not worried about falling on my diaper. I want to walk. I want to get there. Okay. So I know that I can become accepted in areas. I was accepted in so many different areas. Now I'm focused on, yes, I know that there's fear, but I recognize that that's because I'm pushing ceiling. Okay. And that's okay. But what I do have is I have courage, I have tenacity, I have a history of learns and learned behaviors, and I have a history of creating success. And so if I can focus on the little engine, I think I can, then all of a sudden my subconscious jumps on board. Instead of 10 or 12% of me working toward my goal, all the stuff below the surface is working to my goal. And I might even be surprised how quickly, because now, like if I have 10 people rowing the boat, instead of only one or two going in the direction I want, I've got all 10 of.
Mhm.
Imagine how fast you're going to get there.
Right.
So that's what it's all about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to help you to achieve the state of hypnosis. And I'm going to be giving your subconscious your positive suggestions. And like I said, everybody's hypnotizable. I feel relaxed and calm. You might feel like you've gotten 8 hours sleep in 15 minutes. You might just be relaxing with your eyes closed. You may even find that your mind is drifting to other areas, but that's okay because that's your subconscious organizing with symbols and images, saying, "Oh, that's this. Let me add that to the pile. Oh, that's like one to the equation." Because now what's happened is all these things toward your goal. Are you ready?
Mhm.
Are you ready to have all 10 oars in the water going toward your goal? I'm just
Oh,
wondering.
oh, let it
I'm
be. Let that be.
I'm wondering if that may already be happening because I know you have desire, and I know you have this, and I know you have the tools that it takes. I know you're good at it. I know you have it. So I'm wondering as you allow yourself to take a slow breath, soothing, releasing, letting go, letting go. With each and every deep breath, the body becoming more relaxed and more calm. With each and every exhale, releasing and letting go. Tension, stressors, anxieties, worries, melting away. The body becoming more relaxed and more calm, more peaceful, more serene, soothing, relaxing, releasing, letting go. And I'm going to begin counting from backwards from 5 to 0. And as I do, you may begin to notice the body becoming more comfortable, more calm, even more peaceful, more serene. Begin taking a next breath in and allow your energy to focus in the area between the feet and the toes. And as you become aware of the area between the feet, is the muscles becoming so relaxed and so calm, so peaceful, so serene, soothing, relaxing, releasing, letting go. And go. At 4 as the body continues going first. A sense of inner peace and calm, a sense of comfort, well-being. As your attention drifts to the area between the hips and the area between the knees and the hips becoming loose. Comfortable and calm. Feel it inner peace. Well, 3. The number of deep content, tension into the area, into the midsection of the vital organ, the heart, the kidneys, the liver, the spine, relaxing and releasing the tensions and stressors in the vertebrae, one by one by one. And the relaxation continues across the shoulders, down the arms, to the elbows, the forearms, the wrists, the hands. Negative energy, tensions and stressors, anxieties, worry. The body becoming more relaxed and more calm, more peaceful, more serene and still. And still the body goes deeper and deeper at the relaxation continuing up the back. The base of the skull, it's a floating sensation. There's the mind relaxes and the eye muscles and jaw muscles racing, letting it go. Letting it go. So that it won the body enveloped in a wonderful state. A deep relaxation and deep comfort. A deep and peaceful sense of calm, tranquility, inner peace, and inner peace. Each time deep sleep is suggested to you for the purpose of hypnosis, with your permission and only your permissions, they calmly quickly. To this depth or even deeper, the physical body relaxing, and the mind open to the positive suggestions, the positive outcomes of yours. And you know, in your subconscious knows that the time is, and you are aware that as there were messages that you received. Some were positive, some were downward and cruel. Some motivated you to be led by fear. They doubted your confidence, and they created this place of uncertainty. And as weird as it was and uncomfortable as it was, it in fact helped you to survive the onslaught of energy that those out. But that doesn't mean that the true authentic you disappeared. Far from it. You all the while have held on to that amazing, amazing child. As evidence in that dream that you talked about before. You're coming back to rescue that little boy that was helpless. It was out of control. And you were coming back with a lifetime of learnings. And while you woke up not having and rescued him, what that dream represented was that you know not what you need. You came back and you were letting go of the fear. You were letting go of that old belief that you weren't good enough. You were letting that go. And ever since then, it's been a revelation. And the revelation is, I am good enough. I know I have what it takes. I have a list of successes, a long list of areas where I went into a new situation. We all face them every day. That you have hundreds, thousands of situations in the past several years where you went into a situation where you analyzed it and you looked at it and you studied it, prepared, and you recognized and realized that it was something you wanted. It was something new. It was something that was achievable. And it was something in alignment with who you are, where you're going, and on your journey. And you realized that as you were focused on that prize, that carrot, amazing, amazing accomplishment that you were doing, back of your mind, even though you didn't know the way, even though you didn't know how, even though you didn't know how long it was going to take, inside you said, this is important to me. I think I am trusting that my conscious desire is in alignment with my subconscious motivation. That part that wants me to succeed, that part that wants me to survive, that part that wants me to thrive. I'm fully on board. I don't know what the outcome's going to look like, but I do know it's going to be something I want. And so as you are at the beginning, this wonderful new door that you're opening, you notice that the ceiling is higher than it used to be, but you want it higher still. That's a positive, and it's very exciting to be sure. And so as you are looking at this opportunity, you've already opened doors, and you know that as an author, in the marketing companies, in the publishing companies, in the agencies, you've already broken ground, already have blazed a trail, and you know that it's just a matter of time. And your mind, your body, and your heart, and your soul, and your conscious, and your subconscious are all working together. Because this is, in fact, think, think I can, think I can. And along the way, the tribe, the community, the commonalities, they're going to find you because they are looking for you too. In your early morning dreams, venting, releasing, letting go, old behaviors and habits from the past, letting them go easily and effortlessly, because each is a wonderful opportunity, an amazing experience, an event, and an amazing door that is opening. You don't know how, you don't know where. You just know that all is working together. Nothing one can stop you. I think I can. I think I can. I think I coming up to one to become more aware, to be more aware, bringing with you to two a wonderful sense of well-being, inner peace and calm as you come up to three, preparing to come back in the room, becoming aware of your surroundings at four, and on to five, eyes open, wide awake, one, two, three. Eyes open, wide awake. You got this.
Mm. No, that was probably the most tingles and chills I felt in a session before. There's a very
It's,
warm spirit working between us tonight, and I really, really appreciate that.
uh, thank you. I'm so grateful to be on your journey with you. It's just as much a gift for
So, y'all, every time I come out of like hypnosis, it's like I almost feel like I'm a little bit still there. And I think it is known that, I can't remember how it's said right now, but when you're counted up out of hypnosis, sometimes you might still be suggestible to an extent.
us.
And so
Mhm.
I definitely feel like I'm gonna be pretty suggestible for the rest of the day. So,
And one of the things to reinforce that is when you have a moment, hopefully sooner than later, you're able to write down your thoughts and get into that journal. Because when you write things down, what happens is you are reinforcing your subconscious. It's sort of like when you write things down, it's like a highway to your subconscious. And so give yourself the gift of taking some time to just journal your thoughts and your learnings. And then, of course, every night before you go to sleep, tell your subconscious you're continuing this work. Your subconscious is all over it.
hmm,
Okay.
I will do that right now. But thank you so much for coming on this show today.
Thanks.
Again, her website is elaineperilous.com. I'm going to put that in the show notes so y'all can reach out directly to her for all of your questions about hypnotherapy that you know you've always wanted to ask. Well, now you have direct access to somebody who's been doing this for longer than many of you have been alive, and I mean that in the best way. So, it's very, very young
It's
people.
all good.
Ask her, not me, because she knows she taught me it. So, so you can go direct to the source and cut out the middleman.
So
A-
sweet. Thank you so much.
any final closing words to the world?
Pardon?
Any? I always let my guests have the last word. Any words of wisdom or insight to the world that you would like to say?
The answers that you want are already inside of you. Sometimes they seem to be hidden away, but together we'll find them as you find your way.
And that's the way we're closing it. Thanks everyone for watching. Thank you all so much for taking time to listen to the Sex, Drugs, and Jesus podcast. It really means everything to me. Look, if you love the show, you can find more information and resources at sexdrugsandjesus.com or wherever you listen to your podcast. Feel free to reach out to me directly at devannon@sexdrugsandjesus.com and on Twitter and Facebook as well. My name is Devannon, and it's been wonderful being your host today. And just remember that everything is going to be all right.